I tend to start with the overheads. The overheads, just like when we recorded them, are the backbone of your sound. They are what you naturally hear. They are the blend of the entire kit. And granted, they won't be as full as you want them to be, but I like to start there. So let's solo the overhead just for now. And what I'm going to do is put an EQ on here. I'm going to put a 7-band EQ. Now, if you're not very familiar with EQ in general, here's the brief idea. Multiple bands allow you to have multiple points that you can tweak on one EQ. For instance, a single band EQ lets you adjust one frequency, and that's it. Up, down, you can pick the frequency, but you can only adjust one. Whereas the 7-band allows me to adjust 5 complete different bands and have 2 more bands on the end, and these are called your high and low pass filters. So it allows you to do more complex EQing on one plugin. That's all it is. What I'm going to do is listen to the overheads naturally, and I'm going to likely cut out some of the low end on the overheads to make room for the kick. And I'm going to adjust some of the problem frequencies in the middle, and you'll hear what I'm saying. Now, what I've done here is I've taken a high pass filter, an HPF. A high pass filter or a low cut, they're the exact same thing, is just a simple EQ that cuts off at a certain frequency, and you can drag that down. So I've got it set to 66 hertz. Here's my little gray dot. At 66 hertz, the whole thing rolls off. Okay? Now you can make that curve as steep or shallow as your EQ will allow. But what it's doing is really just cutting out completely a lot of the low end. I'm not going to need anything really probably below 100 hertz in the overheads because my close kick drum mic that we'll adjust in a minute does a much better job of bringing in that low end. So if there's any low end in under 100 hertz at all in my overhead mics, and maybe there is, if there's any, I will serve my drum mix better by clearing up some space in the overheads for my kick drum, because that's more of where I'm going to feel the kick drum, not hear the kick drum. Does that make sense? So I've cut out a little bit of that, and I could make that all the way up to 100. I could be even higher depending on the way your mix sounds. What I've done also is I've done a small cut of about minus 1 dB, maybe we'll do a little minus 3 at around 400 hertz. Around 400 is sort of one of those low mid frequencies that a lot of instruments want space, snare, guitars, things like that. I tend to, by default, pull out a little bit in the overheads just at the beginning, just to leave some room for some of those other instruments. And then all I've done is a shelf EQ. A notch would be, something like that. It notches up, it notches down. A shelf is exactly what it sounds like. It starts EQing at that frequency, goes up by the dB that you suggested, so let's say 2 dB, and then every frequency above that gets the same boost. So that's just allowing me to bring out some of the presence, some of the high end from about 4 or 5K up. And that will help with maybe some of the crispness of the cymbals. Maybe each hit of the ride will come in a little bit tighter. But let's listen to it and bypass it and see if we can tell the difference. Okay, so you can hear the difference. It gets a little more present. When you bypass it to your ear, it seems a little more closed off or muddy. It's really because I'm bringing up some of that presence, getting rid of some of the low mid, which can be a little muddy, and I've cut off some of the low down here. I'm not really making any final decisions because I don't know how it sounds with the rest of the kit, but these are areas I start with the overheads just to make sure that the overheads sound balanced, which they should if they were recorded well, but they're a little crisper than anything else because this is really going to be my only cymbal and the kind of the crack of the snare. So I want to make sure that some of that crispness is available and not much mud is happening.